really
that
good.
that
Yeah,
learning is
that's really
not.
good. It
Yeah.
never stops learning. You know, I've trained hundreds of thousands of students and thousands of teachers in education around the world. And one of the things that I always say, and I've heard you say something similar, anyone can learn how to learn. And you never stop learning. You're always learning. So even if it's the minute you open your eyes, you're thinking, feeling, choosing, and building memory, which means you're learning. So you're learning whether you like it or not. So you may as well learn properly. You know, so you may as well direct the neuroplasticity properly because you're going to be learning. So if you learn to be negative about the current situation, that's the learning in your brain that you're putting into your brain. And then that's toxic and damages your brain. Whereas if you take what Jim's saying and what I'm saying and you take the truth in Jim's book, you will actually completely transform how your brain functions. We've got that level of control. You know, Jim, my one book is called Think, Learn, Succeed. So
Hmm.
when you take limit, if you take the limits off, you can think, learn, and succeed. I mean, this is just like twinning over here. And to be able to actually move people forward. And you are such great evidence. So Jim is not just talking from, oh, he's done some research and he read some great books and he's in the wellness space. Jim is talking from his life experience.
Yeah.
And I saw this with my patients. I saw Jim in my practice, not really, but I saw his kind of, and you are exceptional. And anyone can do what you could do. Is that right, Jim? Anyone can do what you can do.
Yeah, having taught this for over 28 years, having students online in 195 countries,
Fantastic.
having our podcast, we have a lot of feedback from individuals, and I truly believe that everybody is capable of more than we're demonstrating. That
Thank you.
we've discovered more about the human brain, in the past decade or two than previous thousand years
Exactly.
combined, and what we
Exactly.
found is we're grossly underestimating our own capabilities. And in the science areas of neuroplasticity and more, that we are incredibly capable, but we have to do the work.
We have to do the work.
It is that simple, and it is that difficult also.
And Jim,
The,
don't you think in this day and age, because you said something so relevant there, we have to do the work.
Mhm.
And that's what, in this modern era, that's one of the things that I came up a lot. I saw in the progression of the 38 years I've been in this field, and I'm sure you've seen this in your 28 years, is that in the modern era now, we want quick fixes. You know, we want, give me just the tablet, give me the quick, I've tried it once, it doesn't work, but I've just shown in my clinical trials, you're not going to make any changes in your brain under 63 days. It takes a full 63 days to build a new network that actually changes your behavior. Most people give up after 3 or 4 days. And I know that's something that you also address with the work that you do.
I think it's so important to people understand that it's consistency compounds over time. It's not,
Mm.
what you do once in a while, but little by little, a little can lead to a lot. One of the testimonials on the who Dr. Mark Hyman wrote our forward of the book, and he says there in spirit of what you're saying, there is no genius pill, but Jim gives you the process for unlocking your best brain and your brightest future. That there is no,
Beautiful.
everyone wants the pill for just focus or productivity, or the pill for, an
Mm.
incredible memory, but there is no pill, but there is a process for doing these things. And so
Very good.
what we're about is taking it and making it explicit, so that you see that there's a method behind what looks like magic, that we are incredibly capable. We have an incredible influence based on the things you and I have talked about on your show, and the things that are in this book that we both write about. Everything from the foods that you eat, to the managing your stress, to really prioritizing sleep. And they're simple things, but again, what keeps us sometimes from growth and getting to the next level, passing this current limit, is this belief like, oh, I know that already. I know that already because I've
Biggest
heard that
problem.
before.
Mm.
But people don't act on it. And so I
Mm.
feel like we don't really know it unless we could do it. And
I love what you've just said. That is brilliant, that people get stuck. So as soon as you think you know you've got it, you've actually now started going backwards. So, that's your limit. A true sage or wise person a wise sage or whatever would be one that is constantly realizing, oh, I know this, but I need more. And because I know this, I need more, because it's a continual, I call it the wisdom cycle. You've got
mm,
knowledge, which you understand. And as you think to understand, you realize I need more knowledge,
yeah,
and then you keep that cycle going. And I
right.
love how you encourage that in your book and in what you teach.
It's interesting because at early stages you see children that they're very playful, they're very curious, they're willing to make mistakes and not concern themselves with the expectations of other people. But sometimes as adults, we're not in that same state. where we approach learning. It becomes, very, sometimes people have their mindset that learning is something that's difficult. And certainly there are areas of learning that can be very challenging, much like a workout. But we do it in the spirit of, wow, this is something, an opportunity to grow. This is an opportunity to challenge myself. That with challenge, whether it's your physical muscles, your mental muscles, with challenge leads to change. Right.
I love that. The challenge leads to change. And I love the analogy of working out, because it's so easy it's actually easy to get people to work out. I know that it's hard to work out, but it's easier to get people to eat a healthy diet and get them to work it out than it is to get them to use their mind. That's what I have found in my experience, because people want that quick fix mentality. If we could get the same attitude to mind development, which is then going to change brain, as we have to getting our bodies looking good and healthy, we would have a whole different process. Meanwhile, it's a feedback loop. So it's just a shift in perspective, isn't it?
It is. And certainly our brain is part of our body. It's just, and people just have to realize, again, why I was point to my brain and picture and photos and wear our brain is just to remind people to love your brain and take care of it. And nowadays it's so important more than any other, because it's not, people who are watching this right now are very grateful you're watching this, and you aren't compensated for your physical strength. It's not your brute strength, it's your brain strength.
It's your brain strength.
It's not your muscle power today, it's your mind power. And right now machines could do things, and they could be automated, and they're going to artificial intelligence. And what makes us valuable is our ability to use our mind to affect our brain, to be able to make positive change and contribute in unique ways to solve problems, to be creative, to be able to add new values that's out there. And this really is, that's why it's so important. So
it's so important, and I love how you handle that. These are things that we need to talk about, and I know people know this. I mean, what we're saying is not something that people don't know. The thing is that people don't really, they know it, but they're not applying it. There's this thing of, okay, I can change and all that stuff, but when it comes down to the hard work of learning to use your mind, learning to learn, spending the time, because it takes so much time. I mean, you did not overcome a traumatic brain injury overnight. You spent years, you're still learning, you're still growing your brain. I am still growing. Every time you learn, it's just that attitude shift. And it's also so good for mental health. Jim, that's one of the things that I wanted to see what you thought about in terms of mental health, because we focus a lot on that on this podcast and on my page. And building your brain is one of the most vital components of mental health. And it's what I would do with all my patients. The first thing I would do is work on the identity and building their brain. So let's say they'd gone through a major trauma, whatever, if it was a brain trauma or it was an emotional trauma like a rape or something, or whether a major learning disability. The first thing I would do is not work on that hard stuff. I would work on, let's build your brain, let's learn how to learn. And that changed the resilience of the brain. And then they were able to then deal with the emotional stuff. Now, have you found that in your case? Have you found that to be the case with the work that you do and your experience?
Yeah, I mean, having worked with children with learning challenges to aging seniors who, early stage dementia and everyone in between, performers, I'm very passionate about it because of my challenges as a child, and I lost my grandmother to Alzheimer's. So I'm both areas, age or stage of life. I'm very passionate, but what I've seen consistently is when people make the decision and they back up that decision with consistent action, that they can impress themselves, because we often underestimate what we could do. Sometimes, again, people want immediate results in like a day or in a week, or we sometimes overestimate what we could do in a day or 2 or 3.
Yes.
We also underestimate what we could do over 6 months.
Exactly.
Or consistently over a year. And just one change in another direction could change everything, your destination.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's so important. What I've seen in my work on neuroplasticity is that your first 4 days are the most difficult. If you can get past the 4th day, you get to day 7 and you can get a wobble on day 7. But generally, if people get to day 7, they'll push through to day 14. Day 14 is critical because that's where you start getting tremendously confident, sometimes overconfident, but you still have to keep going. And it's really major, and that sort of that cycle is that's the hardest thing to convince people to do, not to start them, it's to keep them going. So now I know that you've got some great tips and techniques. So let me ask you some, in our limited time we have left, have you got 5 minutes left? Have you got a few minutes? Okay. What can you, from your book, in terms of COVID-19 now, why would it be so important for us to develop our brain and our mind now in this situation and going into whatever's happening next?
Of course. I mean, we talk about mental health. Aligned with that is this level of mental fitness. That if you want to improve somebody's physical health, you would also get them physically fit. You know, in terms of moving, and they could build. Just like if a trainer would make your muscles stronger, more flexible, more energized, more pliable, and more agile, you want your mental muscles to also be stronger and more pliable, more energized, have greater endurance, more flexibility in your thinking, and so on. A few things that people could think about, and we talked about some of this on the podcast, so people go deeper there also as well. People could also go, the book is available at limitlessbook.com, and we have all the links internationally. We gift everybody a free program for going there.
Wonderful.
Thank you, so you can read it. Simple things that under these conditions, it's more important than ever to take care of your brain. You know, because if you get your brain right, your life will follow. You know, but we really have to prioritize that. And so a few things that can be in mind in terms of positive choices, as we've discussed, but just as a reminder for everybody, you know, this is a wonderful time for clarity, meaning that reconnect with what's important to you. Asking yourself a simple question, because questions help you to direct your focus on things that are more productive. And so ask yourself a question like, what's most important to me in my life? And come up with those answers. What's most important to me right now in a career? Sometimes when you're going really fast, you don't take a pause. And solitude is a wonderful time for self-reflection. So I would say that is good for your brain. Another clarifying question is, are my actions aligned with those values? So clarity. Number 2 is care.
Very good.
You know, take care of your brain. And we talked about that, and we go really deep in each other's work about different things you could do to show your brain that you care for it. Because again, you take care of your brain, your life will follow. A lot of that, you know, in terms of the food, the sleep, the stress management, and there are many other things. On top of that is a wonderful time to contribute, because we know that chronic stress can have, you know, it could have a negative effect on your brain. It can even maybe potentially shrink your brain also as well.
Does shrink your brain.
Certainly. Chronic fear could also compromise your immune system. There's areas of science called psychoneuroimmunology where it makes you more susceptible to colds, the flus, the viruses. And so part of self-care is monitoring what's going inside. You know, going through your senses and how you're actually processing this information, whether it's something that's threatening, and you want to make sure that you control that input. And then also, besides care, you have this thing called contribution, meaning one of the best ways to get out of fear is to focus on somebody else. So how can you invest? What choices can you make to be able to take some of your time, your talent, or your treasure to make a difference? Because when you put your focus on somebody else, you can't be in that same scared state. And then finally, the last couple of C's I would say is creativity. What have you always wanted to create in the world? Because we're actually, a lot of jobs are going to artificial intelligence and automation. You know, they're not going to outsource your creativity or imagination. And that, when we're talking about becoming limitless, you know, the limitless resource on planet Earth is our human potential. Maybe it's not the sky's not the limit. Maybe it's our mind, the limitations of our mind.
Yeah, the limitations of mind. I agree with you.
What we believe is possible, the limitations of our, there's no limit to our creativity. There's no limit to our imagination. There's no limit to us to come together. And there's no limit to human determination to be able to innovate and solve our problems that we're going for together. And then finally, besides contribution and capabilities, what I would say is capabilities, is always learning. You have your to-do list, but do you have an active to-learn list? What have you always wanted to say, oh, if I had some time, but maybe a lot of people have a little bit more time than they used to have. And is it salsa? Is it Spanish? Is it speed reading? We have unfettered access to everything, podcasts and YouTube. And we could be learning. And I don't think we have to spend hours upon hours. It's just, again, small little changes can have a big impact. Because inch by inch, it's a cinch. Yard by yard, it's too hard. 10 minutes on being creative and writing that music you've always wanted to, or starting, you know, outlining a business plan, or 10 minutes of self-care, that going for a walk or some meditation, 10 minutes of reading a day. You know, reading is to your mind what exercise is to your body. Wonderful way to keep mentally fit and focused.
I'm so glad you mentioned the reading. You know, the top of my prescription list was always for the parents and of every patient, whether it was a young child or an adult, whatever, was read, and then the second read, the third read. Reading, it transforms how your brain functions. You go into a totally different mode. It's just so vitally important, and people are not reading as much as they should. Okay, they're reading, they're probably reading more now than they ever have, Jim, because of COVID. So they're reading, there's some reading going on, but that reading could be a toxic bath too. So you've got to make sure you're reading some uplifting stuff as well. So Limitless is a great uplifting book to read in this time. It really is so encouraging and so amazing. Well, I know that you have got to go. Is that right? You've got only a few minutes left. Is there any more words of wisdom that you can give us about your amazing work? And we will, viewers, don't worry, Jim will be back. I'm going to do things with him. He's going to do things with me.
Yeah.
We're going to do stuff together because both of us love the brain so much and believe so much in the power of the mind. So this is not the last time you'll see Jim. But Jim, what could you?
Absolutely. And again, I want to invite you on my podcast.
So excited. Thank you.
Great conversation to talk about that and go deeper. But my message for everyone who's watching this right now is just to be kind to yourself. Sometimes under all the pressure that we have, we're living through a time in history that no one's ever prepared us for. And sometimes we're alone with our thoughts and our doubts and our fears. And I would say, don't compound that by just beating yourself up. Know that that sometimes life, like learning, is sometimes messy, and to not get overwhelmed with it, but see how you could simplify it, meaning that thinking is good, but overthinking and wanting it to be perfect, it is probably going to keep you from even taking those small little steps. And I would invite everybody to ask a question right now, even based on the conversation we just had. What is one thing that I can do today to make some progress? Maybe it's just eating some of that good brain food that we talk about, or maybe it's just taking 5 minutes myself to just have quiet and calm, or maybe it's just going for doing some breathing outside or something small. Because part of it is also, besides self-care, is self-love, meaning that it's how can you fall in love with that person in the mirror who has been through so much but is still standing, and honor how far you've come, and really recognizing that. How can you take some time to be able to just really focus on gratitude, meaning the things that you are most grateful for, going through an experiment, saying like, wow, what if the only things I had in my life tomorrow were the things I expressed gratitude for today? And it would just reconnect you with the blessings that you have. And it puts you in a different state. When we're fearful, we go in fear, we go in fight, flight, freeze. And you're not going to build a quality life and of contribution and fulfillment from that place. And know that we have control, we have a choice, and do not downgrade your dreams to meet this current situation. I see so many people shrinking.
That's very good advice.
Do not downgrade your dreams to meet this current situation. Expand and upgrade your mindset, your motivation, your methods, your capabilities, your faith, your hope, and to meet your dreams. And that we're in this together, and so we have the ability to do this, that you're not alone. To if you're concerned with all the negative stuff going in, I would just say, hey, add some balance, put some good things in also. When you start putting some good things, you start feeding your mind. We all need somebody to encourage us, to cheerlead for us, to challenge us, to support us. And this is what this is, right? We're not socially distant. We're actually being very social right now, all of us. I'm reading all the
Exactly. We're connecting. Yeah, we spoke about that on the podcast too, didn't we? We spoke. Yeah,
exactly. We're physically distant, but we're not mentally
we're
distant.
Connecting.
We're not emotionally distant right now. Just connect. Use this time to connect to individuals. Use this time to be able to reach out for help, because a lot of people are concerned because they're going through stuff and they see reaching out for help as a sign of weakness. But I see that as complete strength, that nobody does it alone. That you going through and showing up and doing what you can, honor how far you've come. The studies done in self-compassion saying self-kindness, being kind to yourself, saying you're only human, we're under extreme circumstances, and just take one step. What is one little thing you could do to take care of yourself, to nourish yourself, to love yourself, and really hold that constant. Like, imagine what you really want. Really imagine it. See it, feel it, trust it, believe in it, and then just work daily for it. And things we will come out of this. When a caterpillar feels like it's the end of the world, that's when it becomes a butterfly.
Exactly.
And
Beautiful.
while the beauty is in the butterfly, the growth happens in the cocoon. And right
Exactly.
now we are cocooning. So what can you do, not to be perfect, but just to make incremental progress again, a little bit each time. And then remember, the life you live are the lessons you teach. So people are watching, and you don't have to be exactly perfect, but the goal is like, how can we live to our best self? We're all on this journey to reveal and realize our fullest potential. And it's our unique story that allows that to happen and transpire. But it's
Beautiful.
through these gatherings like this that really are going to move the needle, knowing that we
I
all
love it.
move
I
a little
love
bit
that.
together. And it's kind of cliche, but it's true. TEAM, team. We're all on this global human team. Together, everyone achieves more. And
Exactly.
here's
And
the
there's
thing.
research behind that, Jim. There's so much research showing that as we come together collectively, this is the first time we spoke about this on the podcast too, that this is the first time in history that global humanity is facing the same enemy. And we've said so much, there's so much negative, but there's so much positive because of this connection that you've emphasized now. So that's incredible. So your words of wisdom are amazing. People take these words of wisdom, get this book, it'll honestly be what you need to start helping you to start moving forward. And Jim, we'll be talking again very soon.
Absolutely.
Listen to the podcast. If it's also on, you can also watch on YouTube and follow us both. And guys, you can do this. We can do this together. Together we are so strong.
Amazing.
Jim, high five, air
Thank
hug.
you, everybody.
Thank you, everybody. Thanks for joining us. See you again soon. Thanks,
Bye.
Jim. Bye.
Bye.